Hey, well, good morning, church. I'm so thankful you are here. I believe this. You could be anywhere you want to be, and for some reason you still chose to be here at a high school this morning, so thank you. This wasn't in my notes, but I couldn't help but share it. I'm so excited. We were singing one of those songs that was talking about God's faithfulness. There wasn't a day when he wasn't by my side. The same is true for you and I. A couple of weeks ago, I heard a story from someone talking about their family in Florida. And there's been some crazy stuff going on there, obviously, if you watch the news. There's so much hurt and devastation and pain. And the family, they were driving away from the hurricane. They got into a car wreck, and it was fatal. They were in the hospital, and the mom may have potentially lost her legs. The baby she was in a coma and couldn't breathe on a respirator. And it just hurt my heart. And this morning I heard the other end of the story, and she's like, check it out. The baby's breathing on her own. She's off of the dilator, and the husband's out of the hospital walking on his own too. I was so thankful that we serve a God who is so faithful always. And even when circumstances come your way, my way, that don't look so good, he is so good at making things that are terrible beautiful. And that's the God that we serve, and I'm so thankful that he is good even when I am not. Hey, so again, welcome. I'm so thankful you are at New Life North Mason this morning. We're all about a handful of things here. We're all about people becoming the church. It's not about a building. It's about you and I. We actually are the church. It's about being on the mission with Jesus. Maybe you remember when you were in middle school, you got called last for a sport. It picked you last. No, he actually picks you first. You're plan A. He says, I want you to be on my team. I don't deserve that. That's so awesome. And to help heal the world. No one's going to argue that we actually need less peace or we need less healing. No, we need more. And he calls us to be a part of his mission. And I'm so thankful that that's the God who we serve this morning. Also, we actually have a handful of 8 different campuses all across Colum and Kitsap and Pierce County, North Mason County. A brand new campus of ours actually launched last week in Sequim. So we're so thankful. Yeah, go Sequim. We're so thankful for that. And it's just so fun to see that the mission's going forward because people want to become the church. And God is the one who's always making those things happen because he is good. If we haven't met yet, my name is Austin. I have the pleasure of being our middle school and our high school lead at our campus here. And it's just so funny how quickly time goes by. You know how this is true. And my wife and I have been at this campus for 1 year next month, and we're so thankful to be a part of the family and a part of this region. So thank you for making us feel so welcome so quickly. We're really grateful to be a part of this. And I was checking my Belfair boxes this morning in my mind, and as far as I understand, I only have 1 box left to check off to be a full Belfarian. Was it Belphi, or is it North Mason? I have yet to purchase a pair of Romeo shoes. So we're almost there. We actually moved to North Mason in March. We live near North Shore, and we're so thankful to be a part of this. And I just love students. And you think back to your life, if you're past that season of life, you know how important that segment, that season of life is. It's actually one of the most impressionable seasons of your entire life, and to have a chance to point students to Jesus and say, he's the hope, he is the reason, he is the one we find healing in, is such an honor and such a blessing. So thank you for trusting us, our team with your students. It means a lot to us. And if you have students, bring them our way, because we want to point them to Christ and actually see them follow him for the long haul. So when they actually get full-time jobs and they become parents, that they're still saying yes, they're attached to a local church, and they're actually living on mission, his mission, every single day. So that's really good news this morning. And before this, I was actually on staff at our South Kitsap campus in Porcher for a handful of years. We've been going to New Life since 2011 or 2012, and we're so thankful to be a part of this right now. If you haven't been here for a little bit, or if it's your first time in a while, we've been in a series called This Is Us. This is Us. And the funny thing about the Bible that I appreciate so much is this, that although it's very, very old, it's just funny how so many things we go through in life right now are the exact same things. They find themselves in a different situation as well. We're going through a book called Galatians. So Paul writes this letter to the church in Galatia. And the situations, the issues they find themselves in this book are the exact same ones we actually find ourselves, I see every day, whether it's our region or it's the world. So I'm so thankful that the Bible is always so applicable to my life, to your life. So long story short, here's where we're at. There was this group of Jews who were actually saying, we want to follow Jesus, God went back into heaven, now we're on mission, let's go. And the church was literally blowing up. It's exploding because God's mission always moves forward, his gospel always wins. Now, at the exact same time, there's this group of people who are not Jewish, who are Gentiles. And they're also like I want to be a part of that mission, part of that calling, let's go. Would you help us to be a part of that as well? And the Jews are like, well, hold on, time out. No. If you want to be a part of this movement, you have to do exactly what we do. You have to do exactly what we've been doing since we were young. You have to follow the law of Moses to the T. Paul gets wind of this. He's like, whoa, that is not how this works. That's not what Jesus would say to this situation. I'll write you a letter to actually kind of flatten you out. Here's what it says. So that's where we're at. And it's just funny how oftentimes they found themselves in a division. And I think now more than ever, in my opinion, I feel like the enemy wants us to be divided desperately, because when he does that, we actually lose and he wins. If I can get just mad at you just enough, or if you can disagree with me just enough, all of a sudden the mission doesn't go forward. And I hate that he wants us to not win. He's so mad that we're a part of this region, spreading the gospel, because that's actually really good news. And I kind of worry sometimes, thinking in my mind that I wonder if our opinions are more important than our calling. Because oftentimes I think certain things and I agree on this or I disagree on that, and yet my calling is always more important. Our calling is this: love God and love people, in that order, every time. And yet sometimes my opinions get in the way of that calling. Jesus said, he says, go into all the nations and make disciples. He didn't say, go into all the nations and spread opinions. He never said that. He says, go and share the gospel. That's the good news. You may not agree. Doesn't matter. We're all one in Jesus Christ. That's what he's talking about. And the church in Galatia finds himself in that exact same season that we find in this book this morning. I spent a handful of seasons in my life working with students in a country called Hungary in Central Europe. And we actually work with students to actually help them develop and actually equip them to go start youth ministries in that part of the world. And looking back on that season of my life, it's funny how that the main thing that Satan wanted to use to derail our mission was always the same exact thing. It was division. If I can disagree just enough, or if I get a little bit mad about that person, they're mad about me, all of a sudden I'm not effective in our mission, in our calling. Sometimes my opinion gets in the way of my calling. I had a chance last year to actually be a part of volunteering at Belfair Elementary and also at Hawkins. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this region needs Jesus so bad. There's just so much darkness and so much brokenness. I walk into the school, it wouldn't take more than 5 minutes to really see the need and to see the brokenness on these kids' hearts and in their lives and to hear their stories. Man, Jesus needs to be a part of this region. I want to be a part of that. He's actually inviting you to be a part of that as well this morning. Hey, so we've been in a handful of topics. Last week was one called race. That was crazy. I remember I go to church since I was a little kid. I have never once in my life heard a sermon on race. I was like, can we talk about that? Is that okay? Like, I feel like there's so many things in life that are taboo. Don't talk about those things. And the answer is this: everybody has questions. Everybody wants answers. So if they don't find it at the church, they're going to find it somewhere else. But the good news is that it's not about my opinion. It's not about Tom's opinion. It's about, what does the Bible say about this? What does the gospel lens would say to this situation? So it's race last week, and now it's talking about status this morning. I'm talking about status. If you're like me, I have a lot of questions. I'm a question asker. I have a lot of questions when it comes to status. Questions like this: do we have the same amount in heaven? Is it wrong to be rich? Or conversely, is it actually better to be poor and therefore rely more on God? Why do some people have more than others? That doesn't always seem very fair, does it? You might have thought about that yourself. I want to read to you our theme verse from the series. It's in Galatians chapter 3, verse 28 says this. Paul writes, there is no longer Jew or Gentile, race. There's slave or free, status. male and female gender. For you are all one in Christ Jesus. This verse is so huge. Paul, sensing that perhaps two churches might come up, one Jew and one Gentile, says that's not how it is. You're all one in Christ, so start acting like it. I find myself in that same exact situation sometimes in life. You might find yourself there as well. I was overhearing a story of a friend of mine talking about a man he knew in India. If you know anything about India, India actually has one of the most basic classification systems for their society. It's called the caste system. It's actually broken up into 5 different categories based on who you are, your social economical diversity. So the first 3 are actually broken up into, like, this is the upper caste, and it's based on people who are like kings and who are priests, and if you're a warrior, that's the upper caste. The one below that is called the low caste, and if you're a peasant or if you're a servant, that's where you belong. And there's actually one more caste. They call it the untouchables. No one likes to be around those people. It's the lowest of the low caste. And see, there's this man he knows in India. It's really fascinating. He loves Jesus a lot. He and his friends, they've been doing some crazy things to actually flip that caste system on its head. He's actually a part of parliament. He has a lot of influence in the region he finds himself in. This is a region where the lowest of low will actually wash the feet of the upper caste and drink the water to get a bigger blessing. It's messed up. And he says, no, that's not what Jesus would do. But he and his friends have been washing the feet of the lowest of low and saying, this is what Jesus would say in the situation. Sit down and wash your feet. They don't know what to do with it. The place is going crazy. They don't know what to do in that situation. That is the epitome of the gospel. God came as literally the king of the universe and came and said, I'm going to serve you. Mark 10:45 says, even the Son of Man didn't come to serve, or didn't come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. That's the God that we serve. These people from India are actually getting their cues from Jesus. There's this verse in Mark. It says this. Jesus is talking. And since I, your Lord and your teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I've given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. Jesus is always the one going first. He's always the one who leads, and we have a chance to actually follow in his footsteps. We actually say on the mission with Jesus, that's where that comes from. I was thinking this week about the topic of status and thinking about things that are not fair, things that are not equal. And in my opinion, it's just me, in my opinion, I think the most unequal, the most unfair thing is the average retail worker and Christmas music. It's not fair. So growing up in my family, we've been in the retail business for almost 100 years. And my dad growing up worked there for about 30-something years, still is. And I never figured out why he didn't like Christmas music. It's like, Dad, everyone loves Jingle Bells? No. Everyone loves rock and roll? No, he doesn't like the songs. I didn't understand why until I spent 4 years of my life, 4 holiday seasons working in that same field. I literally still have PTCMD, post-traumatic Christmas music disorder. I got flashbacks. Don't clap for that. It's not funny. It's just, those songs sometimes drive me nuts. If you've been to the store, you know. After Halloween till New Year's, the same exact 27 songs. Go crazy. But I remember growing up, I loved Christmas so much. My family was so good at actually making things equal. I really appreciate that about them. Sometimes if my brother got more gifts than I did, they'd actually make it more equal by giving me a couple of dollars perhaps to make things equal. And see, the funny thing about the world is that the world is not like that at all. The world doesn't care about equality. Some have a lot of money, some have very little, and then we're all kind of in between. It doesn't care. They don't care who has what. It's a really interesting thing to think about in that way. And as I was thinking and reading more about this topic, I started noticing that God doesn't care how much we have. That blew my mind. We've all been given something. His concern is always our heart. So whether you have a lot, whether you have a little, or you're in between, how are you using that to actually promote God's kingdom? It always starts in your heart. And you find Jesus actually being super comfortable with those who were super rich and those who were super poor. You find a guy named Zacchaeus. He's a little short guy, filthy rich. Say, hey, Zach, I'm going to your house. Get it going. Get the barbecue started. I'm bringing some friends. Let's party. And he goes. He has a great time, and he loves them. Filthy rich. And later on, you see a story about this lady who was a widow. And she had a handful of coins. He was dirt poor. And she goes to the temple, and she puts in a couple of coins in the offering. And Jesus goes, whoa, 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 whoa. She has given more than anybody else. I'm like, no, she didn't. She gave like 2 cents. No. She gave everything she had. It didn't matter who you were. He treated you the same always. Everybody had different amounts, but everybody had the same opportunity, and that's what's so important. The question I want to answer this morning is simply this. Why do some people have more than others? Why do some people have more than somebody else you may know? The first lesson we learn in this is this. We learn to share. We learn to share. See, if everybody had the same exact amount, there'd be no reason to share. There'd be no need. But turns out everybody actually has more of something than you do. So whatever that is, learn to share it. Now, if you're like me, I get a little greedy sometimes. I'm like, well, I worked really hard for this, therefore it's mine. I should keep it and hold it on white knuckle fisted. No. Everything you've ever been given in your entire life isn't even yours in the first place. It's all been given by God as a gift. You are a steward. Share your home, share your car, share your time, your family's time, your food, your cabinets. Invite someone who you don't like over to your house, have them for a meal. It changes your perspective. It teaches us to share. One of the best examples, in my opinion, of sharing comes in the book of Acts chapter 2. The church had just started. It's blowing up like crazy, and these people are doing ridiculous things to actually promote the kingdom of God. It says this in Acts chapter 2, 42 and the following. Now all of the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over all of them, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. Now all the believers met together in one place, and they shared everything they had. I have some things that I don't want to share. Maybe it's just me. They sold their property and their possessions, and they shared money with those in need. Time out, that's stupid. No one does that. It's ridiculous, but yet their calling always came before their opinions. Therefore, everything they had was not off limits. It's all free. Keep going. They worshiped together at the temple every day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and they shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all people. And every single day, the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. These believers were so on a mission, the things they had didn't hinder the mission and actually fueled it. They actually viewed what they had as a vehicle with which to actually drive God's kingdom down to earth. It was crazy, and it changed the world. And I think, why can't I be a part of it? Why can't we do that? Guess what? You can. It starts with you. It starts with me. I heard an illustration that was really fascinating about heaven and hell. I haven't been to heaven or hell. I'm going to one eventually. But it was really fascinating. The guy was talking about hell. He said hell was this massive pasta factory. It sounds so bad, actually. And all of a sudden, people were all spread out across the factory. There was pasta everywhere. It's crazy. And see, but everybody there was actually starving. They were all malnourished, and they weren't happy. That doesn't make any sense. And see, they actually all had a fork. And the fork was just long enough where they would get the spaghetti and they couldn't put it in their mouth. There's torture. And then heaven, spaghetti everywhere. Same exact spaghetti, same exact forks. And there's people, all different areas, they're all in circles with each other. But they were nourished. They were happy. They were all well fed. See, the difference was that they had the fork. They would scoop it up and actually give it to the person across from it. Wow. I want to go there. Pasta. That's what heaven looks like. It's actually all about sharing what we have. What do you have in this season you need to share? What are you holding on so tightly to? That might be what God's calling you to share, give away, sell. So many things will have the strings of our heart so attached and we don't even know it until we lose it. The first thing we learn is actually talking about we learn to share. Number 2 is this: we actually learn why we give. Now, whether you actually have a lot or you have a little, those same strings, when it comes to actually money and possessions, will always vie for the attention of your heart, will always pull on you. Have you ever wondered why we actually give, like in a really general base, but also like think about tithing? It doesn't make any sense. If you have faith in Jesus, tithing literally makes no sense. It's stupid. It's not a good choice. It doesn't make any sense. So you're telling me that God wants me to give 10% of what I earn normally, like on a regular basis? Yes. Stupid. But see, here's the deal. I've never actually given God anything because of a need that he had. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't need my money. He doesn't need my car, my talent. He doesn't even need me. He doesn't need you. I give because I have the need. I can't afford not to give, because when I don't give, I get selfish and make life about me. When you don't give, you actually make life about yourself. We can't afford not to give. We give because it changes my heart the way it changes your heart. This is funny how sometimes I get so bent out of shape about this 10%. Nowhere else in society is 90% not enough. Like, so you're saying that I get 90, you get 10? Sweet. Like, if I had 90% of Amazon, I'm like, that's a lot of money. But like, the little 10%, I get so bent out of shape over a little bit of money. See, the math that God does makes absolutely no sense. He's really good at math, I'm not. Some reason 90% plus God equals more than 100% plus me. That doesn't make any sense. He's that good. He's that good. See, when actually I give, it actually makes me love his church more. It actually makes me a better follower of Jesus. And most importantly, it frees me from a thing called greed. Greed will seep in the most random, funny, weird, awful ways into your life if you let it. One of the best ways to repel greed is to be generous. When you become more and more generous, greed looks awkward. You can't help it. You can't help but give. We learn why we give. Number 3 is this. The third and final point is this. It reminds us who transforms the world. It reminds us who transforms the world. I'm so thankful at the very end of the day, it's God who saves people, not me. I'm so thankful that God's actually the one it's all about him. He actually helps heals and changes societies. You simply get to be obedient and play a role inside of it. As if it's up to me, nothing would happen. I'm selfish. I'm messed up. So are you. But it's because he's so good, he chooses to actually change the world, and he uses our dollars, he uses our time, our talent, and our treasure to promote his kingdom. I'm so thankful for that this morning. When you actually give different things, like say here at New Life, you don't give to the church, you actually give through the church. You give through it. I think it's so cool. We pass these buckets down the aisle, and if you have a lot of money or you have very little, whatever you give goes in the exact same bucket, and God takes that and he multiplies it. God math, the same idea, God math. How cool is that? That we have a chance to actually be a part of what his mission is and to say, I don't got it all figured out. I'll be the first one to say I don't got it figured out. I got a lot figured out. But God does. And he invites you to be a part of that same mission, no matter who you are, young, old, rich, or poor, and everything in between. He calls us to be a part of his mission. For some crazy idea, Jesus thought that a little coin from a widow could change the entire world. And he actually calls us to be a part of that exact same mission. We're going to respond in a moment through sing, but before that, I have something I wanted you to do. If you would, take out your connection card from your program. In the back part, it says prayer, and the bottom says next steps. I believe this. If you simply come into a gathering, you hear some words, and you leave, it's not all that good. God actually says that faith without action is dead. If I don't have a next step, if I don't have something to do besides just hearing someone to speak, then what are we doing? One of these next steps on your card might be your next step. I lied, it's on the front side. The front says today, excuse me. You might have walked in, you might say that your next step is simply, I want to say yes to Jesus. Which, by the way, is the best decision you're ever going to make in your entire life. Every relationship starts with yes. That's where it begins. Listen, God literally made you to be in relationship with him and with people, to know and to be known. That's who you are. You have his thumbprint on your face. That's the God that we serve. And if you're like, I want to be a part of that, I don't got it all figured, I'm not good enough, me neither. That may be you this morning. Check that box off. Second one says, I want to start giving on the mission at New Life. Doesn't matter what you got. It matters how you use what you got. They were like, I want to start giving 10%. Wow. Guess what? The math doesn't make sense. But guess what? He's pretty smart. He figures it out. If that's you, mark the box off. Third one says, email me resources on how to win with my money. My wife and I, we got married 2.5 years ago or so. And when we first got married, we started a budget. I don't like budgets. I want to buy stuff. Let's be honest. But yeah, it's funny how we're actually called to be good stewards of what we've been given, a lot or a little, no matter what you got. I actually have had resources actually help me win with my money, God's money. If you want that same exact resource, check that box. Next one says, I actually want to sacrifice one thing this week so I can share with others. Maybe you want to skip that Starbucks drive-thru. I don't know what it is. How about instead of going out to lunch on your workplace, make 2 lunches at home. One for yourself, one for your friend. How can you actually literally share what you've been given by God to make his kingdom and actually point people to Jesus? Make it really, really simple. Otherwise, you might not do it. That's true for me. Last one is this. Send me information for Walk for Water. You watched that video about Walk for Water a moment ago, and I want us to really show up at Walk for Water this year. It's a couple Saturdays from now at the high school track, 9 a.m. I remember last year I watched a video of Walk for Water, and it's a promotional video kind of talking about what it was. And I've seen probably 100 videos promoting some kind of an event. This video will always stick with me. You watch the video, you see this massive truck that has all the equipment necessary to build a well. It kind of goes past the camera's view, off into the wilderness. All of a sudden, you see this massive horde of little African boys and girls chasing after the truck. They're not walking, they're not chasing after water, they're chasing after hope. Guys, when you're a part of that, you're actually literally changing people's lives. You're actually literally promoting the kingdom of him by saying, we care about you. We want to help heal the world. This world's broken. Be a part of making it better. Let's go. Walk for Water. I want to see you be a part of that. Last is this. We have some buckets that are going to come down in just a moment during this song. If you want to put in your connection card in there or your giving envelope, put that in there. And last is this, prayer. Listen, when you walked in this morning, you walked in with something. I don't know what it is. Maybe you had a really good week. Maybe it was a really poor week or in between. You walked in with something. Don't walk out with those same burdens you walked in with. There'll be some leaders that actually want to pray with you and pray for you. I'd encourage you, step out. Step out of the boat and say, I need prayer. I need prayer. So do you. I wonder if you're next to the simply come down and say, God, would you help me to become more like you? I need prayer for this situation. If that's you, come on down during this last song. We're going to respond and worship together this morning. Would you join me right now?